Um, I'm coming along on Carve December. We're to day 16. I have more than 16 stamps, as I have several days that I did multiple stamps. This one, I've noticed that I've been big on either things with pointed edges or rounded edges, with various number of axes coming from the center. I did a really tiny one by one, of the same kind of a design earlier in Carve December. I really liked it. So here I have a larger version with more detail on that. I had lost my smallest blade. It was under the desk, and finally found it yesterday. So I'm really happy to have had it for this, to do those really fine edges. I find that some of those interior points can be challenging for me. So it's really nice to have it back. I also find I'm still using that X-Acto knife quite a lot. I really admire some people who are doing Carve December. Actually, there's lots of people to admire in what they do. But some of the things I'm finding as I'm doing geometric shapes are, the points lining up and then having a clean cut on the point. So you'll see me going over and over, trying to get an absolutely clean corner on that. I find it can be quite challenging to get that clean corner. It does help to have that tiny nib for the blade. It does help. I've had my carving tools for probably about 10 years now, and I'm feeling this year like they're a little bit dull. So I might need to get some new nibs for my carving. In the future, I might need to think about that. I don't know that you can sharpen them yourself, or that there's any way to do that. That's something I have to look into to see if there's a way to sharpen them. I'm using a combination of the speedball cutter and the craft knife. I'm finding that to get that edge, to get that corner, I need to use the craft knife just to get in there. It reminds me a lot of when my mother would bake brownies when we were kids, and we'd all get a slice, and then later in the evening, one by one, we'd go down to the kitchen and take just a little sliver off the brownies until there wasn't much brownie left. But I feel like that's kind of how you have to do the corners. Yeah, after doing an initial print, I go in and clean up that. I'm not concerned with how it, the little things that stick to the print. And I then went to do some journaling, because yesterday when I decided to do to work on the vision board, I got a little stuck with it after later in the evening when I started thinking about it, and I decided I needed to do some work on thinking about it before going for it. So I took the stamp that I had stamped today, and I traced a template onto it that I have for something else, and divided it into 8 equal spots. And then I had looked at several different people's advice about making a vision board and what kind of topics should be on the vision board. So I gave each one of those sections and yeah, so you can see I'm putting those different categories that I saw recommended into each of those. Thought maybe I would go over it with different colors later for the background, make it easier for me to see. And then after that, I started kind of writing down some ideas about what should go in each category. I think the reason why I did this was I wanted it to reflect more the art that I'm making now, as opposed to some styles that I liked in the past. I still like them, but what I'm creating now. So I did some journaling of that. And the upshot of all of that journaling is I still don't know. So I think I'm really glad that I started the vision board earlier in the month, because if I started it right at the end, as I am likely to do, I'd be right up to the end of the year and not really have my plan in order. So so I think it's going to be more of a process than I had thought before. Some years ago I made a vision board, and I don't remember it being this complex, but maybe I was not doing it with a complex intention in those days. So yeah, I found that some of the topics that were suggested by various people, I looked on Pinterest to see what people had to say about what topics should be, and they weren't all the same. They weren't all the same, but mostly similar. And I found some of those topics were really hard for me to brainstorm on, or to immediately have an idea about what I wanted to write. So I'd love to know if you are a vision board person. I would love to know what your experience with vision boards is. Any tips or tricks you have for making a vision board work for you. I did get the idea as I was working away that for each of those topics, I could probably have another circle divided into 8 for each of those topics. So it could very, very quickly turn into, I don't know, a windmill or something, of little round circles being ever more subdivided. in themselves. But that might be cool. Yeah. Oh, actually, what if I got a really big round background and divided it into 8, and then each of those circles could be around the edge. It could be overwhelming, yes. So that's so I really felt I still had a lot of questions. So I wanted to paint and kind of work through some of those questions with color and paint and paper. And so I got a larger piece of paper instead of working in my art journal. Got a larger piece of paper and glued down in collage fashion a lot of papers that I had decorated, and then added paint over the top of that. Then I added more paint over the top of it and did a little sgraffito. And if you're not familiar with sgraffito, it's when you put the paint on and then you, while it's still wet, you scratch off what's underneath. So, well, you scratch off the top and reveal the color or the background underneath. So I did that, and then I added some more paper on top, as you can see. And it seems to me that it's time for me to use up some of the many papers I have. And then I added more paint. We did a little sgraffito here, but I believe I used a silicone tool for this. Yes, I did. And then right now you can see me using the, well, I am using the silicone tool here. I did at some point go in with the dotting tool from the nail salon dotting tool. And that wire is really great for sgraffito because it scrapes off just perfectly. And then I added more paint. This was a piece that I really enjoyed doing because I didn't have any kind of expectation for it. And sometimes that's really refreshing, not having an expectation for what it is. You're just going to find out what your thought process is on the inside as you go. So I found quite a few things started looking like leaves and flowers, and that wasn't necessarily my intention, but they started looking that way, so I went with that. I do love flowers. I am not a good gardener, but I do feel like I enjoy creating them through the magic of paint and paper and fiber arts. the heating, sort of the dryer, craft dryer, which was basically meant, I think, made for using with embossing powder. It's really helpful to kind of speed up the drying process and move a piece along more quickly. If you had to just wait for that paint to dry naturally, you'd have to wait a lot longer. So hitting it with that heat tool every once in a while can help. You may have noticed I had a little something going on there on the left of that, and I went in to do sgraffito with the dotting tool when the paint was still very wet, and I didn't realize that the paper underneath there was quite so saturated, and it kind of peeled up, but I was able to push it back down and sgraffito through it, and so it's okay, but sometimes it's challenging. And you can see me using the dotting tool there to actually write in the wet paint. I tried doing the sgraffito on that wet paint, and the wet paint was so wet that it just kind of slid back down into the crevices, so that's why I had to do it twice. Adding a little color at the bottom of that that piece of paper is not a huge thing, but it does make a difference in the overall feeling. I thought I had put down too much paint there, so I pressed the paper and soaked some of it up. Love that dryer. And now I'm just going to do some writing. A lot of times I do the writing first and then cover it up. Sometimes I write very kind of wildly, and you can't read it. And sometimes people ask me, what does it say? And the honest truth is, I can't always read it afterwards either. It's not necessarily meant to be read. The Sharpie black marker is my friend. And I'm getting to the end of the page now, and I feel good about it, and I hope you enjoyed seeing this piece. And I'm not sure where I'll be headed tomorrow with the vision board, but I'm sure there'll be something. And it's really taking me by surprise. So we'll have to go on the journey together, I guess. All right. Well, I'll see you tomorrow.